Hello everyone, my name is Sharon Bonney. I am the Executive Director for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Building a Standards-Based Professional Learning System for Adult Educators. I just wanted to let you all know that you can expect to receive a certificate for CEU verification that will come directly from the Zoom platform within 24 hours. So I would give it till 3 o'clock Eastern Standard tomorrow to receive your certificate. And if you have questions on that, you can always contact support@coaeb.org, but I would just wait until 3 o'clock tomorrow to do that because it's automatic from the Zoom platform. Also, this is just one of 50 webinars that we deliver annually on a number of trending topics. Our goal really is to take the professional development outside the brick and mortar of the conference. And we're able to do this because we have a number of annual sponsors. So we just want to say thank you to the sponsors that help us provide this excellent professional development. Many of you were able to participate on the Managers Mondays that took place November through December on these topics. We owe basics, NRS reporting, basic adult education structure and activities, integrated education and training and career pathways, and leveraging WIOA Title II funds with other resources. If you weren't able to join in person, you can always go to our website. It's free of charge. You can download those and review those at your own convenience. We also have a number of free resources on the Adult Educator resource. And those are resources from this webinar and previous webinars that are available there. And if you have an important resource you'd like to share, you can also do that as well. This Adult Educators repository is generously sponsored by Essential Education. Also, going on now, the COAEB Board of Directors, there's a number of leadership opportunities that have been out there in the public. We've put them out, I believe, the last 2 months. VP for Membership, Regional Representative 2, 4, and 6, and also the President-elect, which we didn't post here because you've had to have been on the board, and there's a number of criteria associated with that. But what's going to happen is very shortly, we're going to put the slate out to all of the members. And you as a member can vote. You can vote for the vice president for membership, and you can vote for the president-elect regardless of your region. If you're in regions 2, 4, or 6, you can vote for that specific regional rep as well. So more information on that will come out shortly, but I really encourage you, if you have an interest in COAEB and you would like to be a part of our, who's defining who's going to be on the board, this is really your opportunity to get in there and vote for the leadership of your choice. Also, coming out very shortly, actually on the 1st of the month, you'll be hearing who the winners of our national awards are. We have Teacher of the Year, Administrator of the Year, Adult Learner of the Year, State Innovator of the Year, Workplace of the Year, and Advocate of the Year. And the first 3 received $10,000 plus expenses paid to go to the COAEB conference, and the next 3 received $2,000 plus expenses paid to go to the conference. So we're really excited to recognize excellence in the field of adult education. Our field was able to stave off $87 million in funding cuts and successfully add $60 million on. We have almost 90,000 contacts made with legislators. I really want to encourage you all, if you see an alert come out from our office, take the 3 minutes to click and take action for adult education. It really does make a difference. It's how we were able to save the day working with the field here, with all of you in the field, to take action on behalf of adult education. It makes a difference. So get in there and do the 3 clicks, the quick clicks, to let your legislators know that adult ed matters. We just opened up our adult learner membership. We made it free to all. If you work at a local program or a state association, any adult learner associated with your program or your association can onboard free of charge. And we did this intentionally because of this right here, Educate and Elevate, our public awareness campaign. What we're trying to do is we're really trying to get students involved because we know there's more than 1.5 million adult learners in the WIOA system. And when we use their, amplified their voice, then we're able to have more of a voice with legislators. So it's a great way to onboard your adult learners free of charge this year. And one of the wonderful benefits of membership is that we have COAEB insurance, and they can get life insurance 2 years worth, $60,000 of free life insurance if they qualify. So that's one of the benefits, plus the opportunity to be nominated for the Adult Learner of the Year. Okay, we will have at our national conference an adult learner strand among many other strands. But if you mark your calendar for March 31st to April 3rd, New Orleans, Louisiana, at the Marriott New Orleans. We hope you can join us there. And we've partnered with more than 35 organizations to provide intensive professional development on a number of topics. There's just a couple here that we've listed, but we work with a number of partners to do this. So they really are the experts in the field. They oversee the strand for that opportunity, and then in that way we're able to bring to you the best of the best and really convene everything that's happening in the field. We use the conference to convene that under one roof. I also just want to mention that we have the COABE Journal, and the last edition was Career Pathways that had more than 11,000 downloads from our field. The next edition is Prison Literacy. We're really excited about that. That should hit the stands at the national conference. So today's webinar presenter is Beverly Wilson. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for just a second because I'd love to read to you her bio. So let me stop my video, and I'm going to read to you a little bit about Beverly Wilson. Beverly Wilson has been the Director of Professional Learning with the Arizona Department of Education, Adult Education Services since 2005. Prior to working for ADE, she was a program administrator of an adult education and family literacy program. Before discovering adult education, Beverly taught special education to students in grades K through 8 and junior high students in the areas of reading, English, and social studies. Beverly holds a bachelor in elementary education with a minor in special education from Arizona State University and a master of education from Northern Arizona University. So I'm going to ask you all to please greet Beverly by using the chat box. Put your name and where you're from in the chat box and say hello to her. And then Beverly, I'm going to turn this over to you so that you can start your screen there. And I also, while Beverly's doing that, want to encourage everybody that if you have any questions for Beverly as she's going along through her presentation, just put them in the Q&A. So you put questions in the Q&A, but you introduce yourself in the chat box. Okay, so with that, Beverly, are you ready to share your screen?
I am. Thank you for the introduction, Sharon.
You're welcome. Perfect. I see it, Beverly. It looks great.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here for this webinar today. Just going to move my screen. There we go. Thought it would be important before we started our webinar to talk a little bit about Arizona and how the adult education system works here. We have a really diverse delivery system. The capital of Arizona is Phoenix, and it's right in Maricopa County. It's right about in the middle of Maricopa County. We have over 7 million people in this state. Square miles is about 14,000 square miles that covers 15 counties and 12 local workforce areas. So currently in this grant contract, and we are in our second year of a 3-year contract, we have 23 authorized adult education providers that represent 8 community colleges, 5 LEAs, 5 community-based organizations, 4 county agencies, and 1 Department of Corrections program. So as you can see, it is a diverse delivery system, and it has strengths and challenges because of its diversity. Last fiscal year, we had 14,000 students that were enrolled in our Title II programs, and we also have 80% of our adult education teachers are part-time, and we have about 400 teachers and adult education administrators that work in our state-authorized programs. So that just gives you an overview of Arizona. We have a couple of programs that cover a lot of square miles, and those programs have challenges because they're more rural. So we have urban and rural areas. This graphic represents the framework of the Arizona adult education system. This is probably similar to the framework in many states. We're going to start with looking at the first component, which is the federal, state laws, rules, and policies, many of which we don't have a choice. They're the will-dos, because federal law dictates that we do certain things as adult education providers and systems. So this might be a review for a lot of you, but WIOA Section 223 requires all of us to establish or operate a high-quality professional development program to improve instruction. And there's also language in there around the essential components of reading instruction and including that in the system, and the dissemination of information about models and promising practices. So that's the federal requirement of the have to. The other requirement is that we have to all align content standards for adult education with our state-adopted challenging academic content standards. We also have to identify curriculum frameworks and align those standards that specify what adult learners should know and be able to do in the specific areas of reading, language arts, mathematics, and English language acquisition. And while those are the have-tos, they really do ensure that we have a strong foundation in our adult education system by focusing on high-quality professional development and content standards that help drive instruction. Good instruction for students are very important in creating a standards-based system. The next component we're going to focus on, that is the state-level piece, are the requirements that Arizona uses in our adult education grant contract to help move the system forward, along with some program and fiscal requirements and assurances in the grant. So we're going to look at some highlighted pieces of this that focus on the professional learning system. So in the grant contract that we have with those 23 authorized providers, they are required to allocate and expend 10% of their adult education grant funds and their earned income. And in Arizona, those are the fees that some of our programs charge. They're usually nominal, they have to be on a sliding scale, but they may pay for books or they may pay for some initial testing for students. Those funds have to be used for approved professional learning activities that are aligned to the Learning Forward professional learning standards and the adult education teacher standards. Programs are also required to have all their administrators and teachers hold a current Arizona adult education teaching certificate, and those are granted and awarded through the Department of Education Certification Division. Programs are also required to compensate all certified adult educators for participating in required professional learning activities, including job-embedded activities, and we'll talk about that in a bit, which focus on improving teacher effectiveness. When I first started at the state many years ago, one of the biggest complaints from our educators was that they were not getting paid to come to the required assessment trainings, other trainings that they had to go to. And so we decided that we needed to ensure at the state level that certified adult education teachers are professionals and that they needed to be compensated for their time. That compensation is left up to the programs, however. It could be extra time that they're paid in their paycheck. It could be time off, but they have to have a compensation for those teachers that are participating in the professional learning activities throughout the year. Additional requirements include the programs must use their grant funds to plan, implement, and evaluate professional learning that are aligned to the Learning Forward standards for professional learning. The program also is required to ensure that their print and digital curricular resources that they use for instruction are aligned to the Arizona Adult Education Content Standards. And again, the programs pay their teachers sufficient paid time to plan and prepare for instruction that align to the Adult Education Content Standards. We know that it takes time for teachers to plan effective lessons, and they, as professionals, should be compensated for that paid time. Many of our programs provide about 30 minutes for every 6-hour class. Some do a little more, but that's the average of paid time that our adult educator instructors are able to are able to earn as they're planning high-quality instruction. We also have some reporting requirements for our providers. They need to complete an annual narrative report. Part of that specifically speaks to professional learning and instruction. They also must submit professional learning plans to us. Those are submitted biannually for review. And we actually created an interactive planning guide for programs to use this year, and we piloted that, and we've gotten a lot of really good feedback. So there's a guide for planning professional learning for adult basic educators, and then another guide for planning for English language acquisition for adults. That's our ESOL component in our state. We call it ELA. And there's also fiscal monitoring that's done through the grants management system, especially pertaining to the professional learning requirements. This is just a snapshot, an example of the interactive professional learning guide that we created. Programs have said they really appreciate having a tool, a job aid, to be able to go into what they should be looking at when they're planning their professional development at their local program level. And teachers are encouraged, program administrators are encouraged to gather data and use that data to determine professional learning that has to happen at their local program level, even at their site levels if they have multiple learning centers. Training on how to use this guide is provided face-to-face through webinars. We also provide technical assistance, on-the-job training for administrators as they need it. So we're going to switch over to the teaching and learning side of the house. And this is the part that's near and dear to my heart because teachers need a lot of support to do their jobs well. And it's our job to provide a framework to help them do their jobs in the best way that they can. So this is what we use as our definition of professional learning. It's to improve educator effectiveness and student outcomes. And that definition comes out of Learning Forward, which is the organization that we use for driving our standards for professional learning. And according to the research that's done on professional learning, it has to foster collective responsibility for improved student performance, but it also must include these three factors. It must align with rigorous academic standards and related program and agency improvement goals. It also needs to be conducted among educators at the program and site level, and it's facilitated by well-prepared administrators, professional developers, master teachers, teacher leaders, and coaches. It also has to occur several times a week among established teams of teachers, administrators, and instructional leaders with teams that are engaged in a cycle of continuous improvement. This has been a challenge, and it always will be in adult education, but our teachers work typically 3 days per week, some full-time or actually 5 days per week. But we've been helping administrators and teachers over the last decade find time in their day where teachers can collaborate to talk about what they're teaching, the standards they're teaching, and the lessons they're designing. And this is part of the job-embedded professional learning requirement that I referenced earlier that's part of the grant contract requirements. So one of the things that drives the adult education system are the standards for professional learning from Learning Forward. This guides what professional developers need to know and be able to do to help build teacher effectiveness. So it outlines the characteristics of professional learning that lead to effective teaching practices, supportive leadership, which is key, and improved student results. These standards were adopted by the Arizona Department of Education about 8 to 9 years ago, and it guides everything that we do from the K-12 side of the house to the adult education side of the house. Here's a snapshot of the 7 standards for professional learning that were created from Learning Forward. These are all research-based. They've been vetted and looked at over many years, and they've actually been synthesized a bit more. There used to be more standards, and these are the 7 that have been in operation for the last several years. So professional learning that increases educator effectiveness and results for all students through the use of learning communities, leadership, resources, data, learning designs, implementation, and outcomes. And I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to read through these. And in the chat box, if you could share which standard you find interesting, and have you been involved in participating or leading an activity that falls into one of these standards. So let's give about 2 to 3 minutes for that. Okay, a few people have been able to share in the chat box. And as you're scrolling through these, looking at what other people are posting, much of what we do across the country already actually fits into one or more of these standards on a regular basis. We just maybe don't have the vocabulary, or we're not aware that there's actually research behind this particular standard about what we're doing. And so I'm seeing some of my colleagues from the state, from Arizona, posting. We've focused really heavily in Arizona on using professional learning communities and using data within those professional learning communities to drive decisions. It's really tough for teachers to focus on their student needs until they can identify what they need. And that's an important part of creating a professional learning plan at a program level and at a classroom level. Some of these questions that are popping in the chat, we'll have time at the end of the session to be able to go back and answer some of those. So thank you for participating in the chat. Lots of good standards here that drive what quality professional learning should look like. I seem to be stuck, so Liz, could you advance my slides? They seem to have frozen. And we're on slide 16.
All right, there. Is that showing up?
It is. Can we move it to the slides view, though? The presentation view?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And thanks for jumping in.
No problem.
We knew this might happen. So this is actually animated. So just to make it more difficult, let me see. Now it's still not working for me. Okay. So we're going to talk through some of the research that's behind what high quality professional learning looks like. So this is work that many of you might be familiar with. It's from Joyce and Showers in 2002. We took a list of quality professional learning and put it into this inverted pyramid because for me, it makes more sense when we look at it. So what you're going to be seeing is the green in each of these tiers, and it's the percent of application and problem solving that happens when teachers participate in professional learning. So when people are presented theory, like going to a conference and sitting in a 90-minute, 60-minute session, about 5 to 10% of them will actually go back and apply what they've learned. Then as we proceed up, and go ahead and click, thank you, Liz. As we proceed up to modeling, maybe seeing someone implement that information that they learned, 5 to 10% will apply it. So we're still kind of at the same percentage. If we continue on to the next level, practice and low risk feedback, we think that would get higher, but it's actually only a little bit higher. If teachers are practicing and receiving feedback on their strategies that they're implementing, they only apply it about 10 to 15% of the time. The next level is where we all need to reach as educators. When we involve the models of coaching and teachers working in study teams and visiting each other in the classroom and working in professional learning communities, the percent of teachers that actually are able to apply and problem solve the strategies that they're learning increase to 80 to 90%. That is a huge difference between sitting in the conference session, listening to information, and actually getting to that level where there's high fidelity implementation going on. Teachers need a lot of support in order to change their practice, and that's just the way human nature is, and it's just the way teachers are. Teachers do not want to practice a strategy or implement new things in their classroom with students that they don't feel comfortable implementing. And so by collectively working together, that scaffolding and support for teachers increases the likelihood that they're going to implement with high fidelity in their classroom. So I love this research. I love to show it to teachers because it makes sense to them. And it also helps with leaders when I share this to show them this is why you have to pay teachers to be able to be involved in all of those standards for professional learning, whether it be learning communities, study groups, peer visits. This is why you're putting your money into the support of teachers. Okay, we can advance to the next one. And teaching and learning also covers teacher standards and adult education content standards in Arizona. So let's spend a little time looking at the teacher standards that we created. Next slide. So adult education standards were created in Arizona probably about, I think, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They were created by teachers from around the state. Teachers were formed in groups based on their content knowledge. We had adult educators, and we also had people in the field that were involved as subject matter experts, like community college faculty. And at those experts in English language arts, mathematics, and English language acquisition created standards that specify what adult education teachers should know and be able to do. And these standards guide teacher preparation, teacher self-assessment. They provide a framework and guide for professional learning, planning, and implementation. And so these particular documents were a really important part of our system because it helps guide what those things are that teachers need to know and be able to do if they teach in each of those subject areas. Next. So as I said, it was a multi-layer process. We had those 3 panels of experts. They spent 2 years working on these standards. We did it through monthly face-to-face meetings. We had virtual meetings. They worked in Google Docs. There were lots of lively discussions around what it means to be an effective adult education teacher, but the guidance was really provided by the research and evidence out there on adult learning theory, effective instructional strategies, professional teaching knowledge, and then we also looked at state, national, and international models of teacher standards. And from there, we created our standards. Next slide. So this is just a quick overview of the adult education teacher standards. There are actually 5 for every single content area: mathematics, English language arts, and English language acquisition. Standard 1 focuses on foundational knowledge. So teachers need to know how adult learners learn and the processes by which they acquire new knowledge and skills. There's a standard on ongoing assessment, addressing that teachers understand and use multiple methods of assessment to engage learners in their own growth and to make decisions about planning and instruction, not just the standardized assessments that we all have to give. It's not using that tape to inform your daily instructional decisions. It's all the formative assessments that teachers should be using to guide their planning and determine what their students' needs are. And then standard 3 addresses instructional design and planning. So the teacher will demonstrate knowledge of the adult education content standards and then designs instruction to ensure learner engagement and achievement. And the instructional design and planning also goes into what instruction should look like, which leads into the next standard. Next, please. Standard 4 focuses on instructional delivery, and that's helping the teacher understand and use a variety of student-centered strategies to build on what learners already know and encourage them to apply new knowledge and skills. That's just effective instruction. Our adult learners don't have 12 years with us to be able to learn the skills that they need to learn. And teachers need to be able to focus on what learners already do well and what skills the learners already need, the skills that students need to learn in order to continue their journey on their education to their career and college pathway. And then the last standard focuses on teacher quality and leadership. And this was a lively discussion in the task forces for a couple of years, but the consensus was at the end that adult educators are professionals and we need to value our contributions to the education system as professionals. So a teacher is a reflective practitioner who strives to strengthen the effectiveness and quality of instruction and collaborates with colleagues to improve student performance. So as we look at these teacher standards, they're not different from the professional learning standards that we use through Learning Forward either. They just are more specific to what teachers need to know and be able to do. And this is a snapshot of the teacher standards. And our teacher standards are available on our adult education website at the Department of Education. We have standards that are common across all of the disciplines. And on our standards, these are gray. And then there are standards for teachers depending on what you teach, whether it's English language arts, mathematics, or English language acquisition that are specific to that discipline. So what you're looking at is the common standard of adult learners and development. And the teachers and subject matter experts that help create these standards looked at the indicators, the sub-indicators, and then we are continually working on the sample evidence to flesh that out to help teachers and program administrators understand what that looks like in the classroom. So for example, the first sub-indicator, teachers will know and address who adult learners are and their sources of motivation that demonstrate knowledge in foundation of life and experiences. They also know that adult learning is different from the way children learn and what it entails. And they also need to know how to reduce anxiety among their students and improve their self-esteem. We talk a lot about the affective filter in adult learning and how to help students be successful as they break down their barriers. Teachers also need to know the importance of engaging learners in decision-making about key aspects of their learning. They need to know how to create classroom climate that's sensitive to student diversity and student goals. And they need to be able to provide advice and referral to students to support their learning and their goals. And then last but not least, teachers need to know how to address learning differences in students and apply accommodations and adaptations as needed. So when you look at this, what looks like a very big standard, it actually is embedded in many of our professional learning activities that we do in Arizona. This is part of what teachers participate in local and state level professional learning. And then the indicators and guiding questions, the task force has felt like this really helps support what teachers need to know and be able to do by asking those questions, and professional learning communities use those questions as a guide when they're working on content in their study groups. Next slide. One of the things we did last year to help programs and teachers use the standards in a more discrete and specific way is that we developed a self-assessment tool, and this really came from the links tools that were developed around the teacher effectiveness project that was done. And we developed our own self-assessment tool using our teacher standards. The self-assessment is completed by all of the ABE teachers and ELA teachers at the program level. The data is sent to us at the state office. We aggregate that. We send it back to the programs. There's no names attached, but we send it back as ABE data or ELA data, and we have our local level administrators and instructional leaders and teachers look at that data, and that helps them inform their professional learning goals and the activities and the initiatives that they want to focus on at the program level based on what teachers feel that they need to know and be able to do. And we also use this data at the state level to guide our state leadership decisions. Next. And if you don't have teacher standards in your state, as I referenced earlier, there are some really wonderful teacher competencies that have been developed through links, and those are available to all states. And there's a self-assessment tool that can be used in much the way that we developed our self-assessment that align to those teacher competencies that states and programs can roll out to their teachers and use those to guide their professional learning needs. So if you haven't taken a look at that portal, please do. Next. One of the other pieces that we've developed in Arizona, and we're just now doing this, we're in our first year, the Department of Education has contracted with Pearson to review and revise our current certification tests in early childhood through secondary education. There's literally 100 tests that teachers K-12 can take in order for their certification to be valid in multiple areas. In the last scope of work that the Department of Education put out for an assessment specialist, we included the development and administration of Arizona adult education teacher proficiency assessments in the 4 areas of professional knowledge, ABE English Language Arts, ABE Mathematics, and English Language Acquisition. And these proficiency assessments are being developed to ensure that we're providing a pathway so that adult educators have the knowledge and skills that they need for effective instruction. Even though adult educators and administrators in Arizona are required to hold a current Arizona adult education certificate, the qualifications are minimal. They need to have a fingerprint clearance card and a bachelor's degree in any subject. And program administrators have been asking us for years for some guidance on how to determine if someone who's being hired by them can actually teach the content areas that they're being assigned to teach. So we anticipate that through the development of these proficiency assessments that we will have some a pathway for our programs to be able to see if their teachers are going to be able to pass these tests, or if maybe they want to assign them to a different content area to teach. We anticipate that these will actually be voluntary assessments that programs can look at if they want to for hiring decisions, and that there will be some kind of a highly qualified status that will be attached to the completion of these, to the completion and passing of these assessments. But we're still working on that, and that ultimately is a Arizona State Board decision on the language that we will use for certification. But this is at least a way for us to begin this process of ensuring we have teachers that feel competent to teach the areas that they're being assigned. Next, please. So as I said, these assessments are being developed by Pearson. They're based on the teacher standards. They're based on the content standards. The assessment reviews are being done by task forces of adult educators from around the state. They have been so excited to participate into this, in this initiative, and I've been very pleased with the investment of their time and their expertise into the development of the objectives for the test. And then the next piece that they will be involved in, it will be reviewing the test items that are being written right now for each of those 4 subject matter tests. We anticipate that the assessments will be ready to be piloted in the spring of 2020, and then they will start being implemented in July of 2020, just in time for the next round of grant that will be grant requirements and the new grant applications that will be available at that time. Okay, next slide. So one of the things that I just wanted to emphasize here is that our responsibility as adult education provider are to ensure that we have these content standards that are very well vetted and that they align with our state standards. And so next slide. So we just revised a couple of our content standards in the last 2 years, and we're actually in the process of still doing that. We had a standards revision process where we went out to the field and asked for applicants, both in adult education and again with some subject matter expertise. And we created some task forces to help oversee this. If we could go ahead and just click in the animations to the end, thank you. So we have a standards task force that's been working with the state office team for the last 2 years. Their responsibility is to oversee the standards revision process and all the standards that are being developed from the content work groups. The content work groups consisted of 4: English language arts, mathematics, social studies, and science. English language arts and mathematics finished their work about 10 months ago. And so those content standards are being implemented and rolled out right now. And then the social studies and the science group have submitted their standards to the state office for review by the standards task force and the state staff that are involved in the standards revision process. We're really excited by the quality of the standards that these teams designed and developed. And we started rolling these out in June. So if we could go to the next slide. The timeline shows how the project has worked. So we actually started in February of 2017. We had what we called a phase 1, where it took us through the development of the English language arts and math standards. And then we moved into phase 2 in September of 2017, where we were finishing up that work from ELA and math. And then the teams for social studies and science were working on their standards at that point. And as I said, those have just been submitted and they're being reviewed. We started implementing the ELA and the math standards about 6 months ago. In fact, we just finished a teacher training, a 2-day teacher training on Friday and Saturday on the English language arts and math standards. And it was just a really great synergy for teachers to come together and actually dig into the content standards and look at lesson planning and designing based on the teacher standards and pulling it all together. Great energy in the room from all of the teachers that participated. Next slide. And if you want a little bit of information about the standards themselves, we have them on our website also, and they're the Adult Education Standards for English Language Arts and Mathematics, and then you will see also the English Language Acquisition Standards on our website also, and those are scheduled to begin being revised in the summer. So those are coming up. We just need to get the other ABE standards completed and rolled out. Okay, next. This is what the ELA standards look like. Then this may be familiar to many of you. When the standards were developed by these content work groups, what they did is they looked at our current adult education standards. They looked at the CCR standards that OCTAE has developed, and they also looked at the K-12 standards in our state, which had just been finalized and approved by the State Board of Education. And so the standards that were developed were gleaned from those three documents. The LA standards look like this. We have anchor standards, we have tagging. If you look at the K-12 tagging, we put that into our standards so that teachers can Google by that tag and come up with lessons that are aligned to those particular adult education standards. There's tons of resources for K-12 that just need adaptation for adult students. And we actually practice doing professional learning and how to adapt those so that the lessons are appropriate for adult learners. Okay. Next slide. A snapshot of what the English Language Arts standards look like. Their focus is on text complexity and vocabulary, using textual evidence to support thinking, and building background knowledge. And this actually goes across all content areas, and the social studies and science standards are actually being developed with these three focuses in mind so that teachers use that content subject, I should say the subject matter content from social studies and science to teach these three things. So it's exciting, and teachers, I hope, really love doing standards-based instruction after the way the standards have been designed for them to use. Next slide. The anchor standards, there are 10 for reading, 10 for writing, 6 for speaking and listening, and then the last set, one more click, there are 6 language standards. And so teachers are learning how to use all of the English language arts standards interconnected to each other and learning how to teach across the standards. Next slide. We also have the adult education standards for mathematics, and that's also on our website. And here's the overview of mathematics standards. They call for a balanced approach to rigor, and they fall into these 3 categories, which is what the research says effective mathematics instruction should look like: a mix of conceptual understanding, helping students with procedural skills and fluency, and then real-world contextualization or application. Next. And the standards are very strong in the 8 mathematical practices. The task force that worked on this were very passionate about the use of the mathematical practices, and those are integrated into our math standards and represent the overarching habits of what mathematical thinkers should be able to do in these 8 areas: in reasoning and explaining, modeling and using tools, and scene structure and generalizing. And our training on Saturday with the teachers on the use of these mathematical practices was very well received, and teachers were able to see the connections between their instruction and these practices. Okay, next slide. So the instructional focuses, or some people may know the word by shifts, in math should focus on focus, coherence, and rigor, and they're all integral concepts to teaching mathematics. Next. And if you don't have specific content standards in your state, that's okay. Octave has developed some really wonderful college and career-ready standards that are available through links. And if you need resources to help roll those standards out, the standards and action materials that are available for states are also on the links website. And in Arizona, we've used these standards and action materials to roll out our own standards. We just were able to layer that it's a process, there's great tools available, and so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's already been done for us, and it's available through links. And as we wrap up our webinar today, just an overview again of the things that we've used in Arizona to help build a standards-based professional learning system. We looked at the federal laws, the state laws. We've created rules and policies to help guide a high-quality professional learning system. We have grant contract requirements and assurances about how programs should be implementing professional learning and planning for quality professional learning. And then we have the focus on teaching and learning, helping teachers develop their skills in becoming effective teachers by using professional learning standards, the teacher standards, and the content standards that guide what students should know and be able to do. So when we look at this system in total, that's in Arizona how we built a standards-based professional learning system. And we're excited that we have so many wonderful adult educators in Arizona that have embraced the foundations of all of these standards, and they work collaboratively with us and with each other at their program level to focus on their instruction. So I will switch over to maybe the chat list so I can see some of the Q&A that are coming up. We have, I think, about 6 minutes to look at some of the questions. Let me see if I can pull them up on my end.
And Bev, we're here to help you if you need that. If you need help, we can read them as well.
Thank you. I think I may need to, I'm only seeing a couple.
There's 4, it looks like. Actually, 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then I am in the right box. Thank you.
Yes,
So Anne-Marie Barter is asking about the pathways in adult education through Pearson that leads to certification. Are they used to confirm that a teacher has the knowledge and skills to teach in their subject areas? Yes, Anne-Marie, that's the intent of these. And to help program administrators, as I say to them, put the right people in the right seat on the bus. I think as adult educators, if we have someone who has a master's in teaching English as a second language, but we've slotted them in as a math teacher in ABE, which is not at all their comfort level or their skill level, we need to be able to put people in the right seat on the bus. And administrators are asking, especially in math, can our teachers actually pass the content area proficiency assessments that they need so that we are ensured that if we assign them to a math class, that they can actually teach that math. And Anne-Marie's also asking if the professional learning guide is on our website. Not yet. It will be. It was a draft this year, and we're fine-tuning it based on feedback from the programs that used it for the first time in the last couple of months. We anticipate in the next couple of months it will be on the website so that you can take a look at it. And how has the development of the PL standards for teachers impacted student performance in your state? This is from Karen Welch. We just did our, we just looked at our federal reports, and based on the information that our other unit that does our data and our compliance and monitoring, we're in the top 10 for performance in the country for student learning and educational MSGs. So we think we're in the right direction. We're just going to keep going in the direction we're going. Our teachers, adult education systems nationwide have teachers that don't work part-time. have teachers that work part-time, not full-time. And so all of the foundations and tools and standards that we can put together for them to help move them forward and to be focused in what they're supposed to be doing and their professional learning, I think really helps guide the system. And then Deborah's asking, is there a way to access the professional development manual that you referenced? I think that's the professional learning guide that Anne Marie asked about. And we will have that available on our website in a couple of months. And that'll be as soon as we do some revisions on the draft. And Cedric is asking about highly qualified status. I think that means something different in every state. In our state, highly qualified status is granted to those teachers that can pass their proficiency assessments in their content areas. And that's on the K-12 side. So we're looking at that term loosely right now to see if that would also apply to the adult education assessments that are being developed. Okay. I think that was it for the questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beverly, and everybody who's taken the time to join us today. I just really grateful. I know we had a little over 140 on at one point and over 300 that were registered. So we know a number of people will watch this after the fact. And Beverly, we know that this is important for the field. So thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us. And thank you to everybody else who took the time to join us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I just want to give a shout out to our adult educators that are online and their contributions to helping build the standards-based system. They're amazing, and I'm so honored to work with them every day.
Thank you, Beverly. I'm sure they appreciate that. So from all of us here, thank you for your time, and we hope to see you on the next webinar and also at COAPE 2019, which is in New Orleans, Louisiana, March 31st or April 3rd. Thank you, everybody. Bye now.